Hello, I'm Gareth.
And I'm Shane, and welcome to Building Business Resilience.
This is a podcast from Sanctuary Financial Planning, which helps growth business owners and social media influencers achieve financial independence.
We're two passionate financial planners on a mission to seek out new ideas, tips and tricks to help you take control of your finances and run better businesses.
We delve into the true goals and aspirations of our guests in order to provide you with some real value and positivity.
Nothing outrageous, clear, simple, solid financial solutions. We also have a YouTube series to accompany this, and details will be at the end of the show. So let's move on to our guest.
Welcome back. It's episode 10 of the Building Business Resilience Show. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to Alex Mills. Alex is a homegrown entrepreneur and star of the BBC Apprentice. He was a contestant on The Apprentice back in 2013 and did Wales proud. He was the first Welsh candidate in 10 years, as well as incredibly being only 22 when he applied to the show. Plus, he was also the youngest contestant of the 2013 season. Keen to leave school straight after completing his GCSEs and began working for a slate business in 2009-2010 when the business went under. Alex took a redundancy package and decided to invest that money into setting up his own slate business venture based near Bridgend in South Wales. He used his digital skills to grow the company and expanded due to his digital expansion, generating large orders each year. The business even attracted clients such as the royal family. In 2012, the 21-year-old Alex was ready to invest again and sold his shares to his business partner and began to look into new exciting insurance projects. Selling his shares, Alex gave access to the capital for his new project, and feeling inspired by reading one of James Caan's books, The Real Deal, Alex decided to apply for Dragon's Den and The Apprentice. While Dragon's Den rejected Alex's application, he went on to reach the semi-finals of The Apprentice, where he received one of the most complimentary firings ever. We'll touch more on this during the podcast. Many TV offers followed The Apprentice, and Alex appeared on programs such as Celebrity Juice, Virtually Famous. However, Alex had no interest in being famous for his eyebrows and being Welsh. Whilst on The Apprentice, Alex began an insurance company, so it was easy now for him to turn his attention back to this. Insurance is an incredibly competitive industry, but it's something that everyone needs throughout the year. Alex felt that he could come at it from a new angle, with a new customer perspective, as well as revolutionizing the industry using technology and IT to create a smoother customer experience. Dynamo was relaunched, providing a service with no stuffiness, good quality products, and a very competitive price. Its new perspective is what makes it so successful. In just 2 years, Dynamo went from startup to seven-figure revenue generation. So, without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Al. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gar. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for coming on.
Great, thank you.
Yes. So, hi, Alex, you all right?
Yeah,
as well.
I was going to say, we haven't forgotten about you.
Yeah.
So, how's things going? Current climate, work, home life?
Oh, well. To be honest, typical me. I was supposed to get married this year. So, me and my fiance Emma were supposed to get married in April, and then we had to obviously postpone the wedding due to COVID, so we needed something else to do for a year. So put our house on the market, and I bought another house, which obviously you guys have been helping us out with a lot, which has been great. And cracking on with work. In terms of work at the moment, I'm sort of using the time to, it's been great. My business is very, very digitally focused. So we haven't furloughed anyone. We've been enabled and always prepared for a sort of worst case scenario like this. And it's paid off because our staff have all been working from home. But I've sort of used this time to not slow me down in my personal life, still going to carry on with what I want to do and what I can do. And as well as that, using the time to sort of reevaluate where the business is and try and put some good solid foundations in with some new projects and begin work on those now while the time is low. And maybe some of insurers and other businesses we work with have got a bit more time to look into things so that we can kick off as soon as we can hit the ground running.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think there's a lot of people doing that. I think they're kind of allowing them to kind of reevaluate some things and get things in place. And maybe when you're in the middle of the rat race, as I like to call it, you kind of get a bit tangled up with daily life and the commute and the general noise out there, but this does give you that little bit of time to kind of. We've done the same with our business. We're looking kind of back inside, and it makes you kind of refocus. So yeah, it's good. It's good to kind of
busier than ever.
Busier than ever.
Yeah, I think think one of the key things which I heard, which I thought was quite good, is that someone said it's almost like, if a horse, if you imagine a horse with blinkers that's always running, it can only see so far because that's where it wants to go. But if you stop it in its tracks, it can sort of turn its head and see what else is out there.
That's good. That's actually a good analogy for what we're in at the moment, isn't it? I think it is allowing everyone to kind of do that.
Stop and reevaluate. And I think a lot of people as well will. One of the things which I think that the blessing of COVID, although we hear about all this negative news, is I think it is going to give people the time and security to reevaluate what they want to do in their life, whether it be personal or professionally. And as well as that, it also sort of makes you realise that you can't put off today what you think you'll do tomorrow. If you actually do want to make a change in your life, if you do want to change in career or do this and do that, there's no time like the present.
Yeah, we can touch on this later on, but there's been a theme I think going through everyone we've chatted to of, as much as there's been a horrible period of time, there's been a lot of positives, such as seeing neighbours, chatting to neighbours, as you say, reevaluating your life and hearing things that you probably didn't hear before, as in the birds chirping in the trees outside. You didn't take any notice before, but now you could only go for a walk. You're listening to these more and more, and as you said, fundamentally you're changing a lot of things in life that you probably didn't even realise needed changing. Going back to the blinkered horse. I think was probably going to say in it, you've been in business since you were 19, Alex. What's been the motivation?
To be honest, it was that my life started off, I used to be a housekeeper in the Vale of the Morgan Hotel. So I sort of wasn't very good academically, sort of left school and was a housekeeper. Always wanted to be a graphic designer. So I was doing sort of part-time college at Bridgend College. And through someone my mum knew, there's a guy I knew who was a graphic designer. So I was sort of studying in college and doing some work with him. This was about 2008. So literally, I just started working for this chap, and that was the first sense I realized that you could own your own business, because my family don't own their own businesses. They've always had jobs, and there's sort of circles of people. We've always known people who've had jobs, never known anyone who's owned a company. And I went to go work with this guy called Matt, a company called Bigfoot Creative, and was like, Matt taught me, oh, you can own your own business. And all of a sudden I had this whole, oh, well, you can own a business. You can be a boss, because I just never, ever sort of knew that. What happened with that is that Matt and, a Bigfoot Creative, they were a great design agency. It was a small agency, but I started working for them back in 2008, and that was when the recession hit. The biggest problem with that sort of business was that they had very, very big jobs, but they were taking on board a lot of small clients to sort of keep the cash flow coming in to pay the big jobs. Then what happened with the recession is that all the smaller businesses couldn't pay the bills, and they all dropped design, and eventually the company had to close. I then went to go work for a client that we designed a website for, a company called Slate Sign Company. So I went to go and work there, and essentially within 8 months I was made redundant because that business had to close down. So I was 19, I had 1,500 quid redundancy money, and I thought that I could run a slate sign business better than I could my old boss, because my old boss had very big costs. He had a nice big lifestyle that he wanted to fund. But I thought actually we could scale it down and make a business out of it. So I did. I was working with a guy who was also in the business. We both worked for the same company, both made redundant. So started that when I was about 19. Just sort of taking the digital side. I knew to put a website together, and putting that together with a new skill that I'd learned. And, one of the biggest things I think I learned is that there's no security in anything. You can go and work for a big company or a small company. You've never got security. So just get up and get on with it.
So you knew about security being employed going back 10, 12 years ago, where most people thought there was security. If you had a job or a boss, your job was secure. You knew back then that security wasn't even appropriate for somebody that had an employed role.
Yeah, I in terms of the history of that as well, my father used to work for a very big firm, and they had to close, and he was made redundant a couple of years before. So I think as I sort of hit maturity, sort of like 16, 17, 18, I was aware that nothing's ever guaranteed. So I think that's sort of given me a bit more of a cavalier approach rather than hunker down, do bare minimum, and do that. I've always been quite forward momentum and thinking, oh, let's give it a go, because what's the worst that can happen? Redundancy.
Hit maturity very early.
Sorry?
You hit maturity very early, 16, 17, 18. I thought most men didn't hit maturity until the mid-30s.
No. What I mean is that, as I was coming into sort of realising what happened, I still haven't hit maturity yet.
Don't do it yet. Wait till you're 40 at least. Well, actually, then again, we're 40 now. We're not quite fully there yet. Mature.
Wouldn't agree that we're mature enough. There seems to be a lot of going through these shows we're doing. The two constant themes of adaptation and mental strength or mental toughness. And it sounds from the way you're talking that you've had almost both of them from a really, really young age, that you've had to be tough because you've been kicked in the teeth a few times very, very in short bursts with the redundancies and stuff like that, and being able to change jobs very quickly and adapt to that job, be it from the housekeeping to the employed role and then to the self-employed role. It seems something that's been evident in your life from a very early age.
Yeah, but I think, to be honest, there's also other sides. I think when I was younger in school as well, I never had a very good time in school either. And I think, turning a negative into a positive, I think, I've always had to the sort of learn the hard way that you've just got to keep going on, that nothing's ever easy. So I suppose it's weird. Whenever I start anything out, I never take anything for granted. I don't think that when I'm going to go and do something, it is going to be easy. So I think, step one when we're talking about mental preparation is actually that, is preparing that this isn't going to be an easy ride, and almost getting to that mindset that you're up for a challenge. And that happens a lot. It's not just in business. I think you see that through things like athletes. You never ever, for example, have the arrogant athletes who just think they're amazing and everything's going to work for them. It's actually their insecurities drive that focus before that sort of pre-game focus that, I am going to be prepared for this. And so.
No, I presume you can even take that before we come on here. You were chatting about just coming back off your bike and stuff like that. And it's preparation for everything. You know it's going to be hard. You know it's going to be painful, but you still have to get on and do it.
I was going to say, I think listeners are glad it's not a vlog. Otherwise, they're going to see me in Lycra, which is not a success.
Yeah, no, that's it. It does. It's that kind of. I think different people come from different backgrounds and different kind of motivations, but I think certain things you go through in life build that mental toughness, don't they, and allow you to kind of be able to pivot when it needs to kind of be, because so you started your first business in 19. Then when did you get out of that?
To be honest, and I think, this will go on to one of your motivation questions a bit later, but I got out of it at 22.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was going to say, I'd started my business. Yeah, I know it's always good to say start a business at 19, but I was sort of 19 years old and 10 months. So, I turned 20.
19.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I got out of the business at 22. To be honest, there was a couple of things. I think that a couple of things happened in my life that made me realize it wasn't for me. One of them was sort of lifestyle. My business partner was a couple of years older than me. He had some children, and whereas he was happy with the lifestyle in terms of, he had a nice car and a couple of holidays, I think for me, I wanted to grow into something a bit bigger, further, a bit of a better business than what we had, which he didn't. It was a 50-50 relationship, and it wasn't a 50-50 input. And, one of the other things that did happen, which I have very rarely touched on, but I very sadly had a near-death experience when I was about 22. And I really, really had the shock of my life that nothing's granted and nothing's forever. And I think that to me was the absolute kick that I've got to move. If I'm not happy, I've got to move, because that's it. If something goes wrong, if it doesn't work out for you, there's no restart button. There's no round two. It's now or never. Yeah. And so I did. So I sold up to him and went on to do some new challenges. I wanted to start an insurance company. Because one of the things which I identified with my old business as well is that once we'd made a product and delivered it to a customer, you weren't going to get that repeat business, because we were selling sort of decorative house signs and plaques and memorials. If you saw one memorial, you had to wait for the other person to die to get another one, which could be a couple of years ahead away. And, and I thought insurance, everyone buys it each year. So I thought I'd have a go of that. And, it's quite funny because I wanted to get investment, and I was reading a lot of entrepreneurs' books at the time. And I'd read a book by James Caan, who was one of the Dragon's Den. And he was talking about people always look at the percentages of owning a business, but they forget what that person brings. So I applied for Dragon's Den and they said no. And I applied for the Apprentice and they said yes.
Which probably leads on to the question, and we come back to Dragons. And what everyone was probably going to want to hear is, let's talk about The Apprentice. It's 7 years now?
It was on TV 7 years ago. So actually, about 7 years ago, around about now, was coming to the end of the program, the series that I was on. But it was filmed in November 2012. So I'd sold my business in sort of August 2012, and then got into the program very quickly after that.
Yeah, that was quite interesting actually, because I remember when you disappeared for a bit, because that's effectively what happens anyway when you go on The Apprentice. You disappear. You'll tell you a bit more about that now, but I remember chatting to you when I think you come back, and I was like, where had you been? And I think you said something like you've been working on the old undergrounds in London, some businesses to do with that. That was the kind of story. Was that the story you were using then?
It was a story I was given.
Is that what it was, is it?
Yeah, so we were given. Yeah, so one of the things that they did also do, which was quite good, is they offered support in terms of covering where you've been.
Yeah.
So I think they had these sort of ideas of what they were doing, and they said, "Look, here you go." And I think we had an email address, or so if I had to go into a job or anything like that, and anyone wanted a reference, I could give this email address as a reference for the work I've just done and all this sort of stuff. So it's a massively guarded secret.
Because you were the youngest on there that year, weren't you?
Yeah, second youngest in the history.
Second youngest in the history of kind of doing it. So,
and the first Welsh candidate.
That was right. Yeah. I know it was, and
beardless at the time.
What's that?
Beardless at the time.
Yeah, I now look more like Ryland Clark.
He was very clean shaven then at the kind of time, very kind of dapper.
Work is easy.
Yeah. So, I guess, tell us a bit about the process of getting onto that, and then actually what it was really like on there.
Oh, so to me, I was a bit sort of negligent to the outside world, and what I mean by that is that I've been working for myself, as I said, since about 1920, not 1920, but 19 or 20. And I think because I was working so hard, I was always very, very focused on what I was doing. I sort of, didn't really bother with TV, reality TV, and all this sort of stuff. So I hadn't actually watched the program before. I just sort of knew about it.
Wow.
And I applied for the program. And the way the process works is that you get 35,000 applicants roughly a year. That's what it was when I was back then. I don't know what it's like now. They sort of whittled that down to about 10%, to 3,500. And then they split those into 3 different locations for sort of a day of interviews. So I think it's like they have 1,200 interviews in London, 1,200 in Manchester, and I think like 1,000 in Birmingham. And what you all do is you turn up, and essentially you follow a step-by-step progress throughout the day, where they sort of whittle down 1,000 to 50 by the end of the day.
Wow.
And it's pretty brutal. The first sort of step you have is when you walk in, you sort of put on, walk in like sort of like 10 people at a time, and there's numbers 1 to 10 on the floor, and you stand by a random number, and this woman stands up and says, right, I'm going to ask one of you, I'm going to call out your number, step forward, and you've got to tell me in 30 seconds why you should be here. And she goes, number 7, which was me. So step forward. I'm great business partner, Alan Sugar, blah, blah, blah. I'm this and this and this. And then she turns forward then after that and goes, 7, 3, 5, everyone go home. And then those people have gone. And bearing in mind, to give you an example, like I just come from Wales, so I just jumped on the train there, went in, had it, and left. Imagine that's what someone could have done. They could have come from like Swansea or anything like that. So once you've done that, you then process through a series of like sort of interviews throughout the day, whereby they're looking at the very different aspects of you. Number 1 is sort of your TV manner and confidence. Can you talk? You're not shy and sort of withdrawn. Number 2, that you have some competency with business. You understand business. You know what profit means. You know what tax means. You know what cost means, etc. And then it finishes off with a TV test. So they do that throughout the day, and they sort of then go, as I said, from 3,000 to 150 across the UK. Then what they do is they hold 5 different days of interviews where I think they bring 30 people in. So you bring you in groups of 30. They have one group of 15 and another group of 15. You have to build an IKEA table while being monitored, like a sort of task. And you're giving an hour to build a table. And then afterwards, then they interview everyone. And it's sort of a TV test to see who's good and who's this off the buck with no script, dealing with people they've never met before. And then obviously past that one. And then I came back then for a psych analysis. So at this moment now, sorry, before we go to the psych analysis, we've gone from 3,000 to 150. Now we're down to 20. We go for a psych analysis to make sure that, you know, you're okay with the pressures of the program. And then from that, then they come to the final 16 with 2 or 4 in reserve, just in case anyone can't make it. I think one of the weirdest things, which I'll come on to in a bit, which Gareth got a lot of experience when we were together in Cardiff, is at the time, the woman said to me, it was one of the biggest programs on the BBC. And she said, what you've got to understand is there are 60 million people in the UK and 11 million people watch The Apprentice. That means that roughly 1 in 6 people everywhere you go is going to recognise you. Are you okay with that? Yeah, fine. Yeah, be fine. No problem, whatever. And then we'll fast forward then after the programme to let you know what in reality that was actually like.
I was like a personal photographer, wasn't I?
Is that a 22-year-old going, I'm not going to be buying drinks anymore. I can get into any nightclub. I can walk into anywhere I want and I'm going to get loads of freebies. Is that going through your head?
I think no, to be honest, because I didn't really do nightclubs and stuff like that. The only sort of social thing I had was I used to go to a networking event. So, you know, I never was really like clubby and music and stuff like that. I always went to like a sort of networking event.
He didn't. In fairness to him, like we'd be walking down Mill Lane in Cardiff, and every 5 yards you have to stop to have their photo taken with him, we go past bars and they'd be like, "Come on in, this kind of free." He'd be like, "No, you're right, we're fine."
The hanger-ons, the bouncers would be, you know, ushering you in to get their freebies.
Yeah, but
I all of it like a cheap suit.
It was a bit, I remember like walking down there and you'd go past some of the bars and they'd be like, hey, you know, Al, come on in with your friends. I go, no, it's okay. I'm going to go to this place, you know, because I was going there anyway. Yeah. And it's not like scratching, you know, I think.
I know. It was interesting.
One of the things that you were quite nuts about it, though, was that at the time, it's weird. You can't imagine it now, because back then there was like iPlayer was very small. There was no Netflix. There was no this. It was literally back then. People would plan their day around, I'm going to go home at 9 o'clock on Wednesday and watch the program. Yeah. And it was mad. Honestly, it was the most surreal thing to experience, where you were just walking everywhere and people were coming up to talk to you and take photographs. That was nuts. I think one of the funny things which I did quite funny is there was this one time I was in a bar in Cardiff and I got a funny feeling. I think it was Sam Warburton and Ryan Jones or something like that were sitting there. And this woman sort of tapped her, and they were like, yeah, to photo. She goes, no, can you take this camera and take a photo of me with him? And like, that was weird. So you got this sort of Welsh rugby guy, he's like, you know, massive guy, he's taking a photo of me with this woman, like, yeah, don't hurt me.
But totally surreal. Do you think that at the end of the day, it was still a show for TV? So whittling you down, there had to be different personalities so that it would make a good show, and personalities that might clash with each other. Because if there was 15 other people exactly like you, it probably wouldn't make for a good show. So I presume, you know, you're picked for a reason. There has to be different types of people to bounce off each other and make it, you know, make the show spark and things like that.
You've got to be that perfect blend of competent business to some degree, but also entertaining to watch. Yeah. And, you know, what's more entertaining than a sort of Dracula-like Welsh accent guy going on there, just giving stupid quips all the time? But yeah, I think, you know, I was very lucky, because I think the way they filmed the program is that they sort of silo loads of footage of you. So, for example, they've got like Alex funny, Alex stupid, Alex smart, Alex clever, Alex not so clever. And I think what they do is they construct the program depending on the response of as it goes along.
Okay.
As soon as the first episode came out, everyone was like, what's his eyebrows? What's this? And like Graham Norton was chatting about my eyebrows. And I think there was so much intrigue with me. I was fortunate that I got a lot of screen time, but B, they were nice to me. I came across very well. But I'm not saying that was constructed entirely because of, the way they want to do it. At the end of the day, you can't put on an act for 16 hours a day, which is what you're filming. And if you are trying to put on this act that you are this smart, I was very much myself, and it was quite humbling that a lot of people like that. But there are some people who I was on the program with who weren't as nice people, and it showed, and I just felt so sorry for them because they just had this weekly 11 million audience turning in to see them making absolute tools of themselves.
Yeah.
But you can't lie for, as you say, 16 hours a day. Eventually, you will get caught with all the cameras that's following you and stuff like that, and all the other shows associated with it. If you're not true and honest to yourself, and as much as they have you on there for your competency and your sparks and all that, it's that reason you're on there. If you do anything different, you're soon going to be caught out, I presume.
Yeah, and I think one of the best compliments I think I've ever had is that and I'm sure Gareth can back this up, but a lot of people who knew me beforehand and knew me afterwards and see me on TV, there was no difference. They were like, yeah, that's Al. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't putting on an act or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that was the good thing. And like you say, you would have struggled to put an act on for 16 hours a day. Because how long were you actually filming? So what was the period you were there for?
So if I go you through a regular day, as in a one episode program, we were sort of in the house. We'd be woken up at sort of like 5 o'clock in the morning, got 20 minutes to get ready, and you do have 20 minutes to get ready. You're out the door. You're sort of filming then from pretty much 5 o'clock, and you get back about 8 o'clock at night. Wow. And the program is usually filmed over 3 days. So you've sort of got your design day, your selling day, and then your boardroom day, which is boardroom. So day one, you're sort of, up at 5, back home at 8. The next day, again, very similar. You're up early in the morning, maybe a little bit later, like sort of 6 or 7. And again, back quite late. And then the next day, then you film the boardroom scene. If you won and you got rewarded, you would tend to film that in the afternoon of that day. So they sort of do the boardroom scene in the morning. Yeah. And, well done, you're going to go have some nice caviar, off you go. And then you sort of be sent off then to have your caviar that afternoon. And then the losing team, then someone would get fired that day. The next day, then you'd have a day off. When you're filming the program, again, the secrecy is very, very high. So we had no cameras, no TV, no internet, no newspapers, couldn't leave the house, couldn't do anything. So typically the producers would organize us to like go to the cinema or something, and we'd sort of jump on a bus and go to a cinema and watch and come home. Couldn't drink in the house at all. And then it's the process will start again. So it's typically one episode is about sort of 3 days worth of filming, and then you have a day off, and then just 3 days off, 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off.
So you're effectively in isolation for quite a while then, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you go right the way to the end as well.
Yeah, well, I literally, I went to the one-off, I went literally just before the interviews, then the interviews happened, then I came back for the final.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So I was there for 8 weeks, came home for 4 days, went back.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. But it's quite strange because I think, you start off in a house full of 16 people, and when I left, there was 5 people there.
How far in advance is it done? Because it sounds like it's a Big Brother type of environment, that they restrict your, as you say, social media, television and all that. So if you're going out to the general public flogging something on the streets, has the show not started, or do people recognise you then in the streets?
The people in the street know what's going on. I mean, I think if you're in London, you're sort of used to TV cameras and maybe some stuff going around. But, to be honest, if you've got a team of 8 guys all wearing suits from Next, flogging some shampoo or something, it's pretty obvious what's going on there.
So does anyone come up to you and kind of go, I really like what you're doing, you're my favourite, or does nobody get involved?
No, they wouldn't know who you were at the time, because so for example with us, it was filmed September to November, and then it was aired on TV then April till July. I think they changed it now so that it's filmed in the summer and then comes on in the winter, but
okay,
it's no one would know you at the time they're filming it. But we used to use it to our advantage, because when we were selling stuff, some people sort of caught on what was going on, and we had to design this beer bottle one day, and we were sort of going to the customers like, yeah, the thing is though, imagine what that bottle's going to be worth on eBay in about 6 months. Yeah, you want to buy them, and that's so we were being a bit naughty, but yeah,
that's good, because so the business you went on to with the insurance was what your business is now, effectively, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I wanted to set up an insurance company, and I remember Alan Sugar sort of going, hang on, you've gone from graphic design to slate design to doing insurance. And he was right to find me, because at the end of the day, I was a 22-year-old. If he gave me £250,000 and asked me to do an insurance business, I wouldn't have known what to do because I had no experience in doing it. So when I left the program, I sort of had an opportunity whereby a company had seen me and liked me, and so they employed me to come on board with them, a company based in Penarth called Source, and they literally taught me everything that I thought I knew about insurance. So this is then where I sort of came to work with a business and learned about the whole process and procedure. And we effectively started the business together. So my idea, we started with the company and we went out there. The only problem we had with that is the company itself was effectively as a broker system provider. So they had lots and lots of brokers. And we were sort of trying to put a business together to go direct to consumer. And what they had concerns about was that if they went too far with it, that then all their other brokers would turn around and go, oh, hang on, now it looks like you're trying to cut us out of the market. So as a result, they shelved the project and made me redundant. So the redundancy came back again at the age of 26. And I basically had all the things that I could do with it. I'd spoken to another guy I knew, this guy called Steve, who'd sold his old company, and said, do you want to put some investment into this? He put £15,000 in it, was to help me pay my bills for 6 months to get it started. I started it from my kitchen table when I was 26 years old, and now we're doing millions. So it's been proper zero to hero story, to be honest, in terms of the way the company's gone.
Based on that, I read something, and I don't know, it was some years ago, that you said something. I had it written down here. You think anyone with real ambition or big ideas will never win Big Brother. Was that words from a long time ago, or do you still think that's the same thing? Because it seems you have a massive drive and an ambition to get on with things.
You'll have to repeat what I apparently said. What did I say?
I read somewhere. No, anyone with real ambition or big ideas will never win Big Brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course they will.
No.
Yeah.
Because unlike people, you having an ambition or a drive to do something yourself, it's more so Lord Sugar is there to have somebody that he can give money to and make more money for him. Is that
Lord, I couldn't work with Lord Sugar now. Honestly, I couldn't, because I think what Lord Sugar's after. Lord Sugar wasn't after me when I was 22. I know that for a fact because I didn't have the experience. I wasn't a safe investment. I wouldn't have invested in me at 22. I wouldn't have given me £250,000 back then and had faith that I'm going to come back with £500,000.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that with that sort of investment, with that sort of alien business partner, because that's what Alan Sugar is, don't get me wrong, the way that they'll work is provide enough support and enough contacts to let you get up and going. But, you know, his interest, I think, wouldn't have alignment with me now.
Yeah.
So it worked out for the better. But the guy's a very wealthy chap and has done incredibly well. But he is also 50 odd years older than me. So I'm sure I'll get there one day. But I just don't think we would have worked as a business partner.
Fair enough. So let's talk about something funny. Then let's get away from the serious stuff. Any highs and lows that you're allowed to tell us about? Let's say the show and probably coming into business now.
Highs and lows about the show. The show was great in terms of I think the one thing the show did is it brought me out of my shell a little bit. I was very much isolated in it was me and my business, and I knew these people, and I very, very stuck closely to people I knew. But it opened me up to sort of being able to sort of be a bit more confident with people. I think just because I didn't really have that sort of life experience, like I wasn't 19, 20 going into clubs and meeting loads of people and being social as that. So it definitely sort of brought me out socially to meet a lot more people. And I do think I benefited from that, because I've seen now when with work transforming now that you can't just be a sort of introvert focused person and everything will work. You do need to have the personal qualities. As much business is done when I go take clients to, my Boxer Cardiff Blues, or I go to other rugby games, etc., because there is that element to business as well. You can't just be a focused whiz kid. You must have a sort of social interaction with people. So I'm happy the program did that for me. As for sensational stuff, what can I tell you? Loads, but I won't. No, I don't know. There's nothing really sort of.
Was there any negatives or low sides of The Apprentice?
Yeah. The biggest low side is I got involved in the TV world, and the TV world, reality TV world, is just shockingly. I won't swear, but it's the S word. It's terrible. Honestly, the culture is the culture's cancer. Because when I left the program, I went on Celeb Juice and Virtually Famous, and I was asked to go into Big Brother, but sadly my father suffered a stroke, so just didn't happen. And I think they got someone else. I think they got Louisa instead. But yeah, I mean, it was honestly, I'm so glad that didn't happen, and I'm so glad that didn't work out for me, because what I realised is reality TV is just pretentious nonsense, a lot of it. It's all fake, it's all overhyped, and it's all done to make... I don't get it. People feel very important so that other people watch them, but it's also very, very clicky, and I just wouldn't have clicked. An example I have of that is that I remember I was witness to something that happened, and this particular person knew I'd seen something. I'd try and give as least information as possible. But basically, they said, "Oh, hi, Al. A story's coming out about me with this. Do me a favour. When they contact you, confirm it and say that it did happen. I know it's a bit off about me, but if you could, that'd be great, because it helped me." And I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. And then this particular tabloid called me and said, we heard X and Y happened and you saw it. And I said, yes, because that's what I was told to say. And then the person who'd asked me to back the story up then put a story out about me saying that I was selling stories about them. Wow. But it's honestly, it's so contrived.
Poison.
And get as much exposure of you as possible, and tabloid rag stuff. And I'm so glad I'm just away from all that, and would never encourage it. I think to be honest though, the only annoying thing which I've had is that my beautiful fiance, lover, she loves reality TV, but I can sit there and tell her that it's all nonsense, and I'll tell her how to do this, and I go, that's all scripts, and this, and I'll break it down. And I sort of destroy it for her. But there we go.
Oh.
That's why you join me in my living room, and that's why I've got these on hand. So these are my AirPods, so that whenever she's watching stuff, I can just zone out and do work and shut up, because I'll annoy her.
There's no issue with swearing on here. We've had a previous celebrity guest, Mr. Haskell was swearing as much as he wanted to and all that. So you do whatever you want to do, sir.
Okay.
I suppose you've probably answered a lot of these, but any funny moments then involved in it, other than telling the boy to shut up in the car? That probably.
No, but I think, in all honesty, everyone turned to me. Like, some people, I said, Jason, yeah, we'd be quiet, you silly shit. And like when I was in Dubai, they were asking me if I wanted Viagra, and I was going, fresh Viagra. I don't need any of that. I'm from Wales. But I'm not going to lie, I forgot about all of this. I think the sort of person I am is that my humour is, I like jokes so people go, oh no, you shouldn't say that. They're my favourite kind of jokes. And I think there's I am quite. I think, as I said, when I was younger, I was a bit sort of insecure, but I am actually, not to try and compliment myself in an arrogant way, but I am quite quick-witted. I do say things, and I do say stuff, and it is funny, and a lot of the times I shouldn't say it. This is why I don't do anything with my staff. This is why all my staff have got their lovely managers, because if I come in and say something, I will probably upset someone. Not intentionally, it's just, that's just me. And yeah, I was going to say, so I forgot what the question was. Sorry, I was just going off on one there. Funny stuff. Sorry. Yeah, I think, to be honest, they were great people. Everyone was great, and it really sort of brought me out my character, my shell. And I think the funniest moment is just having to sit around my family, and none of us had seen it. So if I give you the sort of scenario, they're sort of like, it's Wednesday night, it's 9:00, it's time for The Apprentice. My family are sort of sitting there behind pillows like this, because they know what I'm like, and they just don't know what's coming on TV. And the amount of stuff, we'd sit there watching it, and they go, "Oh, you can't say that." I think there's things of me like, I was joking about electric bikes, and I see someone on a mobility scooter. I said, "Oh, look, he's got an electric bike," and my mum was going, "You can't say that. You can't say," and yeah. So the funny side, I think, was actually sort of sitting around people and getting the raw reaction of disappointment, elation, and shock from people I knew.
Fair enough. So what's going to be next for Alex and for Dynamo then going forward?
Alex is moving house. Alex is selling a house. If you want a good house, there's a good price house in St. Fagans. Please email Gareth. He'll give you all the details if you want to buy it. What's next for Alex? Well, wedding's delayed, so we're gonna carry on moving on with the house.
Wedding was due in April, just gone?
Yeah, so it's going to be April, just gone. So it's great. Saved loads of money.
No, you haven't. You've just delayed paying that money.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm going to carry on with life as normal and just get married when I get married, because I'm not going to let it stop me. And although I am quite meticulous in my planning, I sort of like to think, right, we have wedding, then we have house, then we have baby or whatever. If that order changes, because that's what life's for. In terms of the company, I'm trying to grow it as big as I can and as quick as I can. I think one of my biggest motivations, in all honesty, is, like I said earlier, there is only one chance of life you have, and I live by that. And I will grow the company as big as I want to. And when I say want to, because I'm not going to sit here and I don't want a massive multi-billion-dollar company and my face everywhere on that, but I do want a nice sized company that gives me a nice sized living, and I am going to carry on with that. We've got some great plans that are going happen at the moment. We're looking at I can't say some stuff because it's due to NDA, but, the business is going to be doing some substantial volume now next year. Next year will probably, be circa 20 million turnover. And, that's come from kitchen desk to where we are now. Yeah. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. We've got a great team of people, and I'm just enjoying the journey. I'm just enjoying living my dream and taking that. And I think, knowing that we're not going to do it again is always a driver. But the other thing is, one of my drivers, I think, is that I've always had a chip on my shoulder. I don't know what it was. I think ever since I was younger, I've always maybe just had this sort of this knockback that I've had with things, whether it was I was made redundant from people who didn't think I was any good or whatever, or school life wasn't that good. I've always had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and that's a massive motivator to me. And I know it sounds a bit quite cynical, but I'm not doing it to show off to them. I'm doing it to show to me that although I used to think like that, it's actually not true. I can do good things. And yeah, I think it's about it, really. There's a sort of waffly answer. I hope that's all right.
No, it's amazing. I've taken out of that. It's almost the motivation from one of the questions we asked earlier. It seems you're I can say young man because we're older than you, that is driven by a desire to do things and make a better lifestyle for yourself, but not to the detriment of working 16 or 20 hours a day and building up a massive business that looks good but has no lifestyle. It almost sounds, I want to build up something that shows I can do whatever I want to do, without any detriment to the lifestyle that I want and the journey. And you mentioned it once or twice that you're on this journey, but you're loving it. So you're not getting up every day going, geez, I have to go to work. You're enjoying creating this journey, and great, it's growing and growing, but you're also enjoying the whole lifestyle that's associated with it, and not having a detrimental effect on your lifestyle just to grow something and just show it off. So it sounds amazing.
Yeah. I know, and one of the key things I would say about that is it isn't always an easy ride. I have suffered badly with anxiety and things like that as well. And I think one of the things I think was one of the topics we were talking about earlier in the questions about how do you motivate yourself to go and do that. For me, I try and turn a negative into a positive. I've always had that mindset that it's not always bad. Sometimes it happens for a reason. And I had a real sort of big anxious point because the company had gone from, zero to quite well. And I'd been sort of made redundant and things like that. So I was almost sort of hit this point now where I panicked that everything was going to go wrong and it was going to go crashing and bad and all the rest of it. But I think to the advantage of that made me a lot more secure, maybe a lot more cash focus, a lot more business focus on not just taking things for granted, not saying, oh, look at me, I'm amazing, now I can do this. And quite the opposite. I was very sort of in my tortoise shell, restrained and controlled. And ultimately that's helped us out a lot because as soon as COVID hit, for example, we were in a much better position than if we'd over leveraged ourselves or anything like that to try and show off stuff. So yeah, there's some method in my madness, I'd like to think.
If every entrepreneur, business owner was thought it was easy, then everyone would be able to do it, I suppose, Alex. There are there are days, I suppose, when you have your dark times and all that. But as you said, it's turning a negative into a positive, and getting on with it. So no.
Yeah, one of the things as well, I think that I would say to people is that although it's good to have sort of long-term big ambition, always try and focus on the next step anyway. Yes. There's this whole saying that you can walk, you can drive from New York in America to LA and only ever see 10 feet in front of you. The fact is, although you've got that idea in your head that you want to go there, you just need to see the next step and just take the next step and the next step and the next step. And that can be anything. That can be, nailing down a contract, training another member of staff, getting yourself another day off, for example, by training up another member of staff and delegating correctly. And it's just enjoy the small steps and the way that you're working, because ultimately you'll work towards a bigger picture. My next little step, which my missus laughs at me, is that I want to be in the Sunday Times Rich List. And the Sunday Times Rich List, they have a section which is, I think it's like the top 50 under 30. But I can qualify for it for next year because I'll still be 30. So I'm turning 30 at the end of this month. And I need my net worth at 12 or 13 million. So I'm trying desperately to sort of work as hard as I can to try and get as close to that as possible, because I'm hoping that a lot of the people who are in there at the moment, like Stormzy, Ed Sheeran and all, who else was it? Anyway, all these sort of musicians, they're going to lose a lot of money now because of COVID. They're not going to be able to sort of perform as much, so they're going to fall off. So yeah, that's a bit of the arrogant side to me, I suppose. There is that, and I'm not going to hide away from that. I am a big personality.
That's a dream, a goal, an aspiration, something to push towards. So it's not arrogance at all. It's something that motivates you. How old did you feel, Mr. Shears, listening to that? He wants to get in the under 30s rich list. I was just
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I can't even make the 40 and under 40s if there even is one of them at the moment. So
yeah, but the thing is, the Sunday Times Rich List. The Sunday Times Rich List is great, but by no means is it very much an accurate report for discussion. We were chatting about this yesterday, Gareth, weren't we? But sometimes you can have people that they leverage positions like
Yes.
technically I could go and buy 12 million pounds worth of property tomorrow. Well, hey, I'm all of a sudden worth 12 million, but no, I don't. I owe the bank 12 million. So
yeah.
But we'll wait and see, eh?
Superb. It's been
It's
really,
great.
really enjoyable.
No, that's superb. Well, thanks, Al. That was great chat, and I think the listeners will love listening to that stuff.
Yeah, no worries. Well, listen, thank you very much for having me, and I hope you can make some sense out of it.
Amazing. Thanks, Alex. That was a great chat. And again, some big points to take away from the episode. Head over to our website, www.sanfp.co.uk, to learn more about us and our journey. That's it for this episode. Next, we're talking all things leadership and coaching with Phil Davis. You can hear that wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, don't forget to click subscribe to get all the latest episodes as soon as they arrive. Also, if you're enjoying the series, please do leave us some feedback with a quick review, as that helps us grow and ensure we are giving our audience the best experience. Until next time, thanks for listening.